I'm going to stress this aspect once again because it has happened in 2016, and the dissent or a specific group of people which have been targeting the current regime for being repressive hasn't, like, even under the new regime, nothing has changed. The dissent has been there, and they were having the space which they had earlier. So coming to the things like why the dissent or the cry for dissent or repression is now hitting the headlines. So to say, the intellectual cabal or the leftists or whatever you can say, they were like really, what do you say, flabbergasted at like Narendra Modi's victory. And what has happened in 2014 is phenomenal in the sense, like, it was for the first time center of right party has come to power with absolute majority. So till then, like, even most of the times it was like center of center of left which has been ruling India. So it didn't make any much difference to this entire cabal. So they, and most of the dissenting voices actually, so to speak, had like a kind of a personal hatred or enmity, and also they felt threatened in the sense, like, for the past 6 decades only one narrative used to dominate the political discourse or the cultural discourse. So to say, every aspect of the governance or the administration. So, I mean, it is like quite puzzling in the sense, like, for a country of 1.3 billion, it's like, it's unimaginable that there can't be any alternative narratives. But it so happened that for the past 6 decades, only one narrative has dominated. And all other narratives or the alternative narratives are scuttled, and then they weren't given their space, or they were forcibly restrained even sometimes. So that was the case, and that meant, so 2014 has been the watershed moment for India, I should say. And after that, it so happened, like, within a year of Narendra Modi taking into power, this cabal felt rattled. In the sense, for the first time, like, they were feeling the pressure of being checked, because some of these intellectuals or the leftists, they were feeling the pressure in the sense, like, for the first time foreign funds are being scrutinized, and they were like not allowed to have the kind of a freedom with which they used to get the funds from abroad. That was one reason, like, they were waiting for a chance, like, how to, like, create a kind of a confusion in the society. Even before that, even just before Narendra Modi could take oath, media is flooded with so many opinion pieces and people warning them, saying that country is going to go through dire circumstances, and like without even having an idea about how country is going to be administered, they have passed out a blanket statements or sweeping judgments saying that, like, there are going to be massive riots, there are going to be civil disorder in the society, law enforcement will be severely crippled, and things like that. So that was the first alarm they have raised against this government, and after that it continued. And I would like to say that there were, like, actually, so to speak, 3 rounds of dissent. The first one I could say is, like, in 2015, which started with the award Wapasi movement. So the award Wapasi movement, I should say, because, like, it was spearheaded by, like, Nayanthara Saigal, niece of late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. And, like, it's so surprising, like, being a Kashmiri, she was never offended by the genocide against the Kashmiris. Kashmiris were driven away from their places, and then they are made to flood away. But nothing has affected her, and she has received Sahitya Academy Award in 1986, and then just 2 years before, six were massacred in the national capital region, but that hasn't even affected her. And going back little further, like even during emergency, like around 4.3 million people were sterilized. Even that couldn't really affect the conscience of these artists or writers or film producers, who at once have declared that country is going through the most intolerant phase, or this is the most intolerant regime in the independent India. So around 50 people have written their Sahitya Academy Awards, saying that the government is repressive and it's fascist, and then their conscience doesn't permit them to have this kind of an award. But surprisingly, none of them have given back their financial incentives or perks from the government, or none of them have resigned, so to say. That has been the case. And uh, and the cabal for the first time had a kind of a success with this kind of a movement, or the ripples which they have created across the nation, in the sense their voices were noticed. Even these things are being highlighted across national and international media. There were debates held, wide range of debates were held, discussing whether India is really at the danger of slipping into an authoritative regime and things like that. So, but nothing of that sort has ever happened, and since then they have been targeting each and every incident. They have been randomly choosing and picking up incidents that would choose their narrative. So immediately after September 2015, the first thing they have picked up was they targeted Maharashtra state government for imposing meat ban for 8 days. And this has been happening since a long time, in the sense from the Congress days, but never there has been hue or cry about this issue. And this 8-day meat ban is to honor the sentiments of Jains, that is with regard to the Paryushan thing, where it is an 8-day regime of intense prayer, repentance and reflection. So in honoring those sentiments of Jains, Maharashtra government has been following that, and this was immediately followed by a kind of a protest in IIT Madras, where they have raised voices against or rather they have come down heavily on Ministry of Human Resources for banning them from having Ambedkar Periyar group in the campus. And after that it just continued, they have targeted random aspects, in the sense incidents where Dalits have been the victims, or Muslims have been victims, and that has been a selective outrage. They have continued that selective outrage, which again it has reached to a crescendo in January 26 with the suicide of Rohit Vemula, where they alleged that this has been a Dalit repression. I had to stress on this issue once again, because 20-year-old Abhishek, a Hindu boy who has also committed suicide in Sringeri at the same time, was received no mention anywhere. It's only the selective instances people have been trying to project. So that has been one of the instance. And then after that, right after January, again in National Capital Region, they have targeted Sri for conducting this World Cultural Festival on banks of Yamuna, saying that it's going to have a very serious effect on the ecosystem, on the river ecosystem. But months after the conference, the foundation had successfully proved that nothing has been affected. But what remains is to say that their outrage, or their angst with government has been so selective, that has been always to foster their narrative, or to present that they have been facing that kind of a repression and things have changed in the present system.